Hello Internet, I'm the Disney Brain and welcome to another edition of The Top. Thanks again for all the supportive likes and comments on my last Top video. It took a lot out of me to do and I was worried that it wouldn't be any good. Your support always means the world to me, but it was extra special this time around. Anyways, getting back to the topic here finally brings us to the top 10 best episodes of Liv and Maddie. If you've watched any of my episode reviews or any of my videos that even briefly reference the show, you'll know that I'm a big fan of this show, its family dynamic, its unique and engaging character setup, as well as its humor, which can be pretty standard at times, but usually gets more than a few laughs out of me. Making this list was hard because what I found with this show is that most of the pretty good episodes are about the same level of good, with a couple near the top really standing out. Agree? Disagree? Make sure to comment with your own thoughts and favorites down below. With all that said, let's kick things off with number 10. This episode is a good one for a variety of reasons. It shows a more involved, environmentally conscious side of Liv that wasn't overly present in episodes past, and since she's a star in the context of the show and was by no means forced to start an upcycle movement, it was nice to see. The whole losing the charm bracelet storyline was actually very significant because this was the 30th episode in the series, so we all know how important those things are to the twins. But what really makes this a top 10 episode is the Joey Parker story and what it means to be a true brother. It was a great moment for the both of them and serves as a perfect example of why I favor the Rooneys as a family so much compared to other Disney Channel families. Even when they don't always see eye to eye, I can always tell that they love each other, and that's proven when situations get tough. A very early but very well executed episode. It's Liv's birthday, which obviously means it's Maddie's birthday as well, but the plot thickens when Mama Rooney informs them that they were actually born on different days. This is a classic example of Liv going the extra mile, when she can, for her sister, and the scene near the end, where Maddie keeps her old jersey number, is one of the show's best moments. And, once again here, it shows that despite the major differences between the twins, they're always going to be there for each other, because, as the show often tells us, they're sisters by chance, but friends by choice. This episode serves as a great piece of character development in the department of friendships. Willow gets the scholarship that Maddie has always dreamed of, while Parker lies to Reggie about being able to turn vegetables into meat. I really wish that were a thing. Anyways, Willow and Maddie have never really fought before, and the way it all plays out is pretty raw and just might make you feel a thing or two. It's also very in character for them to disagree in the particular way that they did, and the eventual resolution was nice to see. What I liked is that Parker's side plot wasn't a complete parallel. Reggie and him weren't at odds or anything, but it proved that the friendship that they had wasn't solely based on Dr. P's ability to take on any challenge. Two pairs of friends and two great resolutions. This was one of the more unique episodes because it took place more so in a movie studio than in any other episode. The addition of Gary Marshall as a director really worked here as well. But at the core of this episode was conquering fear, and with it came a new side of Maddie. In the aftermath of blowing out her knee in her last basketball game, which I'm glad they didn't show by the way, she is genuinely afraid that she'll never be able to play again. But when Liv faces her own fear of doing her own stunts, it encourages Maddie to do the same. A feel-good episode for everyone involved with a great setup. Things like stunts, surgery, and re-injury are very scary ideas, but like most fears, they can be overcome with a little help from the family. I'm not the biggest Halloween fan in the world, especially when they make whole episodes about it, but I'm proud to call this a beautiful exception. This is one of the funniest episodes of the show to date, and it is just the right amount of cringe when you realize that Joey is hitting on his own sister. And yes, that aspect of it is pretty disturbing, but everyone is perfectly aware of that, and that's what makes it work here. But the take-home message here is to be yourself, which I know is done to death, but it's still a valuable lesson to develop Joey's character since he's so wonderfully off the wall. Eventually, the girl he likes ends up talking to him because he's being him, and that's always nice to see. It's up this high mainly because it's hilarious, but the idea of Joey being just the best Joey he can be is a great one. This episode is also a really hilarious one for completely different reasons than Kang-a-Rooney. Froyo Yolo is a solid parody that cuts deep into the heart of every ironically popular song to have come out in the last 10 years or so. I mean, there's really nothing about it you can take seriously. The whole side story of Papa Rooney hiring Parker to come up with new romantic sayings every day is also pretty funny. But what really makes this a top 5 episode is the fact that it all builds up to Count Me In, which I believe is easily one of the top 2 best songs in the show. The fact that the song is both about Liv and Maddie makes this kind of like the unofficial theme song of the show as well. But what's better is that both of them helped inspire it through Maddie's journal entries and Liv's musical prowess. It felt similar to the situation in Let It Shine, where Coco Jones's character was under a similar pressure to either do what was popular or sing from the heart. These are the kind of decisions that can make or break careers, so seeing Liv struggle with that was a great piece of acting on the part of the one and only Dove Cameron. This episode marks the beginning of the end for the relationship of Holden and Andy. Both of them have contrasting opinions on their last date, which leads to a very powerful moment on live TV where Holden panics while getting put on the spot by Johnny Nimbus, which leads to him and Andy breaking up. The side plot of Parker and Reggie fighting works here too, because Reggie hangs out with Maddie for a while, creating a friendship-love triangle of sorts, and it's a pretty intelligent parallel to the larger story. I'm not a fan of love triangles of any sort, but I think that what they do here is brilliant. Holden shows up to Liv's place, explaining that he never felt the same way about Andy as he did for Liv, but Liv, in a really incredible move, rejects him for now, since she knows that Andy is in a rough place at the moment. But that's not even the best part. I have nothing but positive things to say about Holden, and this moment is a big reason why. He doesn't complain, he doesn't fight, he doesn't argue, he understands. He knows that this situation is a complicated one, and he's not going to try and force anything. It was after this episode that I was 100% sold on Holden. I really like this guy, and I'm glad he and Liv are finally together now, because of how their relationship was patiently built up. A great and memorable episode. Champ-a-Rooney has a lot to do with why Continued-a-Rooney is this high, so I wanted to make sure to mention both here. These episodes work well to create a very personal situation that extends over 2 seasons. For an episode meant to be dramatic, it's actually really funny, and Parker is a big reason why. You'll notice that this episode is a bit more self-aware than the others, and Parker anchors the humor that stems from that reality very well. This episode is a mess in the best possible way, insofar as to say that things keep getting screwed up because no one person is in the right place at the right time, and there's a lot of moving parts. Regarding Diggy, well, let's just say I'm not his biggest fan and leave it at that. There was a time where I was slowly getting used to him and beginning to realize that he's not so bad, but you'll find out in the top 5 worst episodes video why that feeling just didn't hold up. But being as objective as I can, which is pretty impossible for Maddie stories, the send-off was nice. Her and Diggy left on pretty good terms, and I didn't have to vomit in my mouth at the sight of them potentially kissing. By the way, thanks for the save, Joseph. All in all, it's a really great episode and has laughs, drama, and a pretty nice ending. It'll be interesting to see what happens when Diggy does eventually return from Australia. This episode is incredible. I watched it live and immediately knew that it would be very high on this list. The competitive feel of it all is so engaging, and, of course, this naturally places my favorite competitor in the center of it all. But this episode isn't entirely about sock hockey or pull-ups. At its core, it's a story of a young prodigy in Parker trying to adjust to high school life as best he can. It's such a beautifully captured emotional episode because it takes a completely new angle by putting more focus on the relationship between Maddie and Parker, which doesn't usually happen plot-wise. I have a more complete review of this episode on this channel because it's so recent, but the scene where Maddie sacrifices winning just to make her little brother feel more welcome to Ridgewood was beyond touching, and it felt genuine as well. If there's one thing that's more important to Maddie than winning, it would be her family. And again, it's the family dynamic that keeps me watching this show, because when they do need to focus on the serious familial relationships, such as sister-sister, or brother-brother, or sister-brother, or mother-father, they almost always get it right. This would have been a gripping episode with just the gym focus of it, but the fact that they made it mean something as well, I really have to tip my hat to the show creators for this one. Just a spot-on job. And, of course, before we get to number 1, let's bring in some honorable mentions.
Show you what a girl is.
I'll get this part out of the way first. The Joey Parker side plot here doesn't fit all that well in this particular episode, but it's kind of fun seeing how they actually go about splitting the room and arguing in the way only the Rooney boys can, so it's entertaining enough. But at the heart of this episode is the single most valuable lesson that this show has ever taught. Todd Stenson and some other shallow pricks at Ridgewood feel like it would be a great idea to actually rate girls. Now, I understand that this kind of thing happens everywhere and to both genders, but to actually discuss it with the girls in question is crossing the line. The rating system actually encourages some of the girls, namely Willow, to change their appearance to be more in line with what a group of guys thinks is attractive. That inspires Liv to write a song about the subject after having a hard time thinking of something to inspire her musically. The song is a powerful message, but not necessarily a new one. The impressive part was how the scenes were captured in the background alongside the song itself. The girls obviously don't say anything during this, but their strain and struggle is evident before they realize that the only 10 they need is the one they give themselves, which is exactly what they do. Even though I'm obviously not female, it's a take-home message I can both get behind and relate to. I wasn't always comfortable with who I was, and I often let other people affect my self-worth, so I know firsthand that girls and boys alike struggle with these pressures. To see these women attack that rating system and proudly be exactly who they are, despite what anyone says, showed true courage. The kind of courage that many don't always have, and that many may gain from having seen this episode. At the end of the day, this show is built on family, humor, and strong characters that are committed to being the perfect version of exactly who they are. This episode wonderfully captures the spirit of the entire show, both with Parker and Joey eventually settling their differences and the larger plot point of the girls standing up for themselves. These are the kind of inspired episodes we get when the show creators are dedicated to creating something more than 22 minutes of laugh tracks, and I hope that in the near future there are even better episodes waiting for us. Thanks for watching. If you like this video, help me out with the likes, subs, and share it all over social media. And don't forget to follow the Disney Brain on Facebook and Twitter for updates. Links down below. This coming week will be fairly busy for me in the real world, but hopefully I can get the first of several super awesome Power Rangers videos uploaded that I mentioned before, as well as diving into the top 5 worst Liv and Maddie episodes, with the Austin and Allie video probably coming a little later on. So, be on the lookout for those. Until then...